Let's just back off the scripture point for a moment. To start having a respect for science, you would have to have a respect for reason. Reason. And reason would say this: this entire universe does not exist because of a series of unrelated accidents. That's not reason, that's insanity. That's when you put somebody in a padded cell. Because reason basically operates on one basis: cause and effect. Cause and effect. That's how reason operates. You see a cause and an effect, and a cause and effect, you track that. That's what reason does. So to look at the massive universe, macrocosm, look at the microcosm universe, and conclude that nobody times nothing equals everything is a form of insanity. Is there anything more insane than that? That's like saying I'm a potato chip. I mean, this is completely irrational. You cannot have personality, intellect, emotion, complexity, massive displays of power coming out of nothing. One of the interesting things that I read some years ago was von Neumann, who was a German scientist, had the idea of a perfect machine. And so he designed this perfect machine by concept. And he said a perfect machine would be self-propelling. In other words, it would have within itself its own energy source. It would be self-repairing. It would have the ability to repair itself at every point. And thirdly, it would be self-reproducing. So this perfect machine that was self-propelling, self-repairing, and self-reproducing, he concluded, would be so infinitely complex as to never be possible to build. And then he realized that that's exactly what every single living cell in life is. It is a self-propelling, self-repairing, self-reproducing, complex machine that has within it structure and DNA and information systems that cause it to do exactly what it does. If you look at that, you have to understand that this demonstrates a massive, massive, complex mind. Now, one other thing to say about it. Science doesn't have any business talking about creation. All science can do is observe. Science can say, this happens, this happens, this happens. There is no scientific explanation for creation, any more than you could say there's a scientific explanation for Jesus walking on water. What's the scientific explanation for Jesus walking on water? There is none. What's the scientific explanation for Jesus raising dead people? There is none. What's the scientific explanation for Jesus giving sight to blind people? There is no scientific explanation. So if there's no scientific explanation for miracles, which is essentially why they're miracles, then what is the most monumental, massive, incomprehensible miracle of all miracles? And that is that the entire universe comes into existence in 6 days. There's no scientific explanation for that. If you walk back into the creation account with science as your tool, you're a fool. The only way you'll know creation is to hear from the first eyewitness of creation, the Creator himself, and that's Genesis 1 and 2. So science has no business going into places where they can't see a reproducible reality. Creation is the most massive of all miracles. But again, if you're talking to a teenager, what you want to say is, you know that every effect has a cause. And the complexity of all the massive effects in the universe cannot have no cause. How do we know about creation? The only way we could possibly know is if we have an eyewitness account from the Creator. And that's what Scripture is.